Hey y'all, and welcome back to a new video of a game that I played recently, just today, where I, I was completely winning, and we're just gonna get into it. So my opponent starts off the game with move knight f3, which is a very reasonable move, and I like to try and get my opponent to play Catalan when they do this, when they try to get into some sort of King's Indian attack. So I go with d5, and I'm always inducing the move d4. That's the main point. Knight f6, bishop g2, g6. We get into a symmetrical position here. My opponent goes c4. I go e6, simply saying that after takes, I'm going to take back with my e-pawn and open up my light squared bishop. Of course, I could have played the move c6, but I didn't like this as much because a lot of the time in the Catalan and the engine actually supports this move. I didn't like this as much because a lot of the time in the Catalan you want to play the move c6 to just blunt the bishop, and I thought that the e-pawn would be better if he were to take, which is true, but it wasn't correct. My opponent goes d4, the move I had been waiting for, and now I play the move castles, and my opponent takes on d5. Taking on d5 here is a big mistake, and the reason why it's a big mistake and the reason why much of the Catalan is why it is because in many of these d4 positions, the light squared bishop is the problem piece of the black position, and while taking on d5 may look alluring, what you're doing is you're allowing me to open up my light squared bishop now. Now this bishop has the scope, which is why e6 was kind of a bad move in the first place, why it was an inaccuracy. But now I have my bishop as the scope, and I'm doing actually fine because I'm going to be able to blunt his bishop soon. And actually, the open e file really only benefits black since I get a rook here, and the open c file doesn't really do anything since this move c6 is very reasonable and very common in these positions. My opponent goes knight c3, I go c6, right? What I just said. Bishop g5, and I go with this move h6. Simply saying, okay, either you take on f6 and give me the bishop here. Not something he probably wants to do because my bishops are actually pretty good and these two bishops are not that bad. Or you go back and agree that this was a waste of time. And he decides that taking that knight is not good. He decides taking that knight is not good. Also, if you're confused, obviously here, g5, the bishop is trapped. So not going to go over there. And bishop b3 is the move chosen, which is not a good move. Not a good move. Really, he has to go all in here. He has to go takes on f6. I probably take back with either piece, but the queen makes more sense to me. And black is better. Black is better here. I wouldn't say by minus 0.1. I'd say a little bit stronger than that. But all in all, I'm doing quite well. And my opponent would have to admit that if he took that. A lot of people don't want to admit things, me included. So bishop e3, and I go rook e8. Not a hard move to play. h3, okay, reasonable. And I decided to go with this very interesting move, bishop f5, which I thought was very cool. What I could do instead, I could play the move knight e4, but I didn't really like this. After knight e4, okay, either I take with my rook and like allow discovered checks, which is bad, or I take with my pawn, which is what the engine likes. And then I thought that my pawn was just kind of weak. Like, this is the main line, knight e5. I don't really want to take this knight. Obviously, yes, it is a free pawn, technically. But at the end of the day, even after all of this, white does win the pawn back over here. And actually, my king is very airy, which is just not good. Actually, bishop h6 is a miss. Oh, right. Rook g8 first. But whatever. My point still stands. Instead, bishop f5, which was my idea, and my idea was to play this move bishop e5, try to trade off a knight that way, and then plant my knight on e5, which I thought would be like a very strong knight, and the only way that he would really be able to get rid of it is by trading off his light squared bishop, which is obviously not what he wants to do. And after the move queen d2, attacking my pawn on h6, I played a really bad move. For some reason, instead of calculating properly, I calculated a line which I thought was like fine, but I wasn't calculating anything that was good for me. Like I did this in one of the previous games, I think on this channel, where I played some move because I analyzed something, but I didn't evaluate the position afterwards. So I just got into like a worse position. Actually, I won that game because my opponent blundered. But instead of that, here I do the same thing. I was like, okay, king h7 defends the pawn, probably okay, right? Like now that the pawn is good. He doesn't have any like weird attacks on it. Like this move isn't really that strong. I was thinking, oh, okay. I considered that after king h7, g4 was a thing, but then I'd go bishop e5. I mean e4, tried to trade off that. And if he took, then my knight would be very strong. If he didn't take, then maybe my bishop would pressure in. Maybe I get my queen up there in the future if I can draw arrows. And I thought that the position was okay, but I calculated something else too. I looked at the move g5, which is the best move. This is the move I'm supposed to play. G5 was a very good move. If I'm able to play G5, we just put it on the board here. If I'm able to play the move G5, I'm actually doing really, really well. I thought, okay, G5, okay, it defends the pawn, right? My whole analysis of this was G5, it defends the pawn, but it kind of opens up my king a little bit. Do I really want to do that? And the answer is yes. The answer is yes. Because even if h4 is scary, I can even play g4. Nope, that is not the right move. Knight g4 is what I'm supposed to play. hg takes, and then e takes, and something like hg here, and then, well, no, obviously that hangs a knight. And this position is said to be better for black, which is pretty obvious. It's pretty obviously better. Like if you go knight in the middle, which is an interesting idea. Like I can even sack my rook and give you these triple isolated pawns and play a move like bishop e6, and now you're just going to lose all your pawns and your king is weak. That makes a lot more sense than what I did. But after the move king h7, which I played, as you can see, the eval bar behaves it, my opponent does have the move knight e5. And knight e5 is very, very strong here. It simply attacks the f7 pawn, and there's not much I can really do about it. I might even have to, I'm going to have to play passively. I'm going to have to play something like queen e7, which is not where I want my queen to be. But my opponent doesn't do that. He goes g4. And I was like, g4? Oh, what luck. I'm glad you did that instead of knight e5, because I genuinely, after I played this move, I was like a little bit concerned about knight e5. I was like, wait, knight e5 is a little bit strong. But instead, g4, and I simply put my bishop in the center, which was my idea in the first place. My opponent could go g5, but decides not to. Instead decides take, let me have my good knight in the center, attacking the queen, and now my queen is opened up over here, and this is the position that I wanted, right? I wanted my knight to be on the square. And after queen b4, which is a very interesting move, wasn't really expecting it. I was kind of expecting like queen c1 or something, just to keep this pressure towards the pawn. It's all fine, but I just wasn't really expecting queen b4, and I was like, you know what? What if I just offer a queen trade? What if I just offer a queen trade? And I played the move queen b6, which is actually kind of funny. It should be classified as a miss. There's this nice move queen c7. I was thinking about sacking the pawn. First of all, sacking this pawn. I didn't think that was good. In some lines, it's okay. I think probably like queen here it might be fine. No, maybe not. Either way, I didn't think that was good. So queen c7 is actually the best move. Just coming over here. And after something like rook a c1, I'm going to play knight d7, I'm going to get my knight up here, maybe rook here, and I'm just going to play a positional game where I'm just better. I'm just better here. White doesn't have a clear plan, and even though white has the bishop pair, his bishops kind of suck because this bishop is blunted so heavily. This bishop is literally blocking the e-pawn. It might be better if you didn't have it, and I'm doing really, really good. Instead, I play a decent move. I play queen b6, which is, it's fine. Idea is, of course, if takes, takes. I thought I was just going to argue I'm better since I have the open A file, and then maybe I can get my knight up here like this. And I thought, okay, maybe that's good. Maybe I'm also running c5, something like that. And I was like, okay, my position's doing good. Of course, he didn't take. We played queen a3. Reasonable move. I wasn't expecting it. I was expecting more queen b3. But I guess even here, takes, and I can argue that these pawns are just weak, even though you have the a file, which is an interesting idea. But instead, my opponent goes queen a3. I go knight a6. Very reasonable move, I thought. Just getting my knight out. Maybe I'm trying to come up here. Maybe I'm trying to go queen here and then come up here. Also just connecting the rooks, which is always a good thing to do. Knight e5. And I was like, knight e5. Okay, what does it threaten? Threatens the f7 pawn. Can I sack that? Probably not. I don't think I can. You know what? I don't really like where my pieces are kind of placed. My dark squared bishop isn't doing too much. I was always trying to get that going too. And I was like, my dark squared bishop isn't doing that much. And I was calculating, if I take here, he opens up an attack on my queen. That's fine. I have like this move, for example. And I'm like, okay, sure. I'll do that. I even have the move c5, which I thought was very clever. So I did this. I took, but this is just wrong. I shouldn't be giving up my dark squared bishop. I should just be going along with like normal play. I was trying to get a little fancy here, and more often than not, getting fancy gets you killed. And bishop e5 is not a good move. Of course, it's a good move if he plays this, because this, but like he's just going to recapture. And I should have gone queen b4. I don't know why I didn't, really. Queen b4 is actually a very reasonable move. After takes, my knight is actually quite strong, and I'm not doing too poorly. His pawn is weak. But instead I went c5, and I was like, you know what, c5 is a really cool move. I really wanted to play it. And I was always expecting this move bishop e4 to destabilize my center and like get something going here with like rook c1 and b4 maybe in the future. And I would have to like defend my pawn. And you know what, maybe I'm playing e5 in the future if he doesn't take on e4. And I was like, you know what, that seems pretty decent. But instead of doing that, instead of taking on e4, he does something that's not very good. He goes rook ft1. Not a good move. I could have taken the pawn. And I'll tell you why I didn't. I was like, bishop f4. My rook has to drop back to e7 or something. Yeah, bishop f4. My rook has to drop back to e7. And like at the end of the day, my pawns are falling apart, and I didn't like this position for black. I just thought this was bad. And I'm right. Okay. So instead I played the move rook a8, which I thought made more sense. Slight inaccuracy. Computer wanted rook takes e5. But I thought this made more sense to me. Bishop f4. Reasonable move, defending the pawn. I went with this move knight b4, just getting active, like in his face. I'm like, okay, I'm just coming in. I'm doing some good work. Maybe a knight's rerouting up here. Maybe my knight's just threatening this first of all. And I'm like, you know what? The knight, it should be going up, right? I'm going up into his territory. I should be getting like something here, right? That's just how chess works, really. And after knight b4, my opponent goes rook a1. Okay, expected. Targeting the pawn and stopping the fork. Very reasonable move. I go queen b5, which I thought was a very interesting move. Again, trying to come up into the position. Obviously, taking this pawn is kind of a death sentence. First of all, the queen is trapped, but if it wasn't trapped, even if I just like took this, I thought that black was probably better here. Actually, engine says equal, but you know, engine always says equal. Said queen e3. Yeah, reasonable move. Gives me this pawn, but I didn't want to take it just yet. I thought that taking it was kind of a bad idea. Since I thought my opponent got some play. He's also attacking the h6 pawn. Like if I took this pawn, I thought, okay, he comes here, he gets this pawn is hanging. It feels like everything is hanging in my position. So I played the move b6 just to get some stability here. I decided to lose this pawn to get this pawn back, which was my plan. And my opponent, again, the move my opponent has not been doing the entire game is this move bishop e4. He has to play this. If he doesn't play this, he's just never going to be able to do anything. Rook d8 here. And white is just doing quite well. No, not there. Bishop h6 now. And this position is better. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, but he has to do that. Instead of doing that, he goes bishop h6. Okay, reasonable. Computer says this is the best move on the game review depth, but no. Rook e5. My opponent goes back to f4 for some reason, hitting my rook. I go back to e8, defending this rook so there's no like weird attacks on this knight. And I'm like, okay, I think black is probably doing better. Like, you know, he might have some attack on him. My king is the bishop pair, but that's kind of all he's got. Now I have attacks on the queen side. I have this mountain of pawns that's going to race forward here. I got the center control. I feel like black is doing pretty well. My opponent takes on e4 finally. And after rook takes e4, I was like, okay, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. He can sack his queen here if he wants. I didn't really believe in this. I thought queen e2, and I was like, okay, that's enough. He didn't do it, and instead went queen g3. Reasonable move, trying to come in with some weird lobster pincer mate. First of all, this is a fork of the rook and the king, so I have to do something about that, and I go rook d8. This pawn is always defended. Now I'm attacking this pawn with 3 pieces, which is quite nice. Queen h4, king g8, and my opponent goes with this move e3, and I'm winning. I finally get the blessing from Stockfish. Finally. Oh, man. So long, very drawn out. I'm a little bit exhausted, but I'm winning. And I find the move. Of course, I can take on a2. But I was like, why do that? Rook a1 at the very least. And I guess queen takes b2. Computer says this is good. And then knight b4 back. And I'm up a pawn. But my king is kind of getting swarmed. The move bishop g5 is kind of scary, trying to get in here. So I'm trying to stop all that. And I was like, wait. The bishop is the problem, right? Isn't this just a fork? Knight d3? And yeah, it is. It is just a fork. And I'm actually doing really, really well. The move bishop g5 comes to mind here as a move for white. A very interesting move. I can't take the rook because I get mated, which is kind of fun. But what I have to do here, I have to go rook forward but e6, and after this move, I sack my rook, come here, and then take on, I don't know, we go d4 or something. Open up this. Okay, cool. Yeah. And I'm doing really well, but instead my opponent goes bishop h6. I have to come back, prevent queen f6, otherwise I'm getting mated. So rook 4 e6. Best move, obviously. My opponent goes rook c2. Also, if you might be wondering why not this, because check here. And I'm like, no, that's not really what I want. Here, actually, I have crazy move queen b2. I didn't see this during the game, but at the end of the day, it's at least a draw. But actually, white is winning after move rook c3. It's quite nice, and I have to sack my knight. At the very least, it's a draw because takes, and rook g5. But anyway, rook 4 e6. My opponent decides to save his rook, playing rook c2. Okay, reasonable. And I'm like, okay, you know what? Let's bring the knight over to the center. Let's go knight e5, which is, this engine says it was the best move. The Game Review engine hates me for some reason. And I'm threatening to fork. I'm trying to get in with this. Maybe my queen is going to get in through something like this here. Maybe my queen's going to come in through around here. I'm better. I'm arguing I'm better. Queen g3. My opponent goes queen. I go queen a4 because I'm awesome, which is the best move. I'm very proud of this move. I love moves like this, where I go all the way to the side to reroute over here. Hits the rook, and my idea is to put my queen here. He goes b3, I go queen e4, hitting the rook, threatening this, and my opponent goes rook cd2, allowing me to give knight f3 check. And I'm going to be up in exchange. King f1, take on d2 with check, and rook d2. And I'm winning. Well, this is when it all goes south. As you know, if you don't know, this is pretty much the moment where I throw the game. I got less than a minute on the clock. Not doing too good. If I had more time, I probably could win this. Like 2 more minutes, I could probably win this pretty easily. Maybe 1.5 even. Maybe 1 minute. Honestly, 30 seconds, I could probably win this. But instead, I have to play very quickly, and I start doing normally what do I give checks. Queen h1, somehow the best move. King e2. I go d4, trying to explode this, but then the bishop comes back, and I was like, okay, it's scary stuff. Rook d1, queen e4. My opponent goes h4. Maybe I could take. I didn't really like this that much because I thought the bishop came back, and then I don't know what I even have. So I didn't do that. Instead, I played d3 check, which is just a pawn loss. Like, I just hung a pawn. Yeah, that's my bad. Instead of that, I could have gone c4, which is a nice move. And after takes, I can play something like rook f6. No, not rook c6. I mean, I was thinking rook c6 to just target this pawn. Actually, computer does like rook f6. Coming over here, trying to mate him. Yeah, instead of that, I played d3 check because I have 25 seconds on the clock. Rook d3, b5, h5. I go c4. Quick idea. Rook d4 hangs a rook in one move, but I don't see it. The pawn is pinned, but I miss this, and instead go queen c2 check, king f1, and c3. Desperately trying to promote a pawn. Not a bad idea. Not a bad idea. And actually, it's winning. This is a winning idea. My opponent takes on hg. I go rook g6, obviously targeting the queen in some lines. Getting over there, my queen guards my rook. Very nice. G5. And I play the wrong move. With 18 seconds on the clock, I mess up. I gotta play queen b1 check. And this is easy. It's queen b1 check because now the queen doesn't stop the pawn, and I come over, and I realize that during the game, like right after I played queen c1 check, in 2 seconds, and actually queen c1 check is a draw. It's actually slightly better for black, but it's very hard to play. Especially not with just seconds on the clock. King g2, I push my pawn. Now it is truly a draw. Queen c7 is a very nice move. Coming in, trying to get the rook in over here. Just hit the pawn. I gotta go queen d1, which is a nice move. Basically stopping this due to queen g4 and queen takes rook. Yes. Okay. Yeah, basically stopping that to do that, but I miss it. I go queen b2, not a bad move either, trying to come in and stop everything. Rook d8, and I'm winning. Again. This one's a bit harder. I'm winning because after rook d8, he has nothing. But instead I go crazy, and I decide to queen, and I was like, okay, maybe I can survive. But after rook e8, king h7, queen f7, I have one move and one move alone that doesn't end the game right here, but it's unfindable with 5 seconds on the clock. I gotta go queen g7. Okay, sure, why not? Just allow this because I get rook g5 check and I'm actually drawing, which is nice, but no, that's unfindable. Instead I go rook g7, bishop takes, queen here, and queen h5. Queen h6, and I allow him to get the mate. Queen h6 mate, and he got down to 10 seconds too. He's at 8 seconds now, which a lot different than the 2 minute that he had when we started this whole arrangement. Either way, that's all I have. This game was actually incredibly tiring. I lost the next game too. I haven't been under 2200 yet, but I'm 1 game away, which isn't good. Really bad stuff, actually. Really bad stuff. This is not good with the winning today. I think I won 1 game and then lost 3, which is not good. Okay, I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. I'm just gonna end the video. Yeah. If you liked it, remember to like, subscribe, and all the normal things YouTubers tell you to do. And yeah, that's it. Good evening and good night.